Okay, in today's session, first after Shavuos, we're going to be starting the halachas of Mincha on Shabbos.
Mhm.
Person hears that, he says, how many halachas could there be? What could there be? Sounds boring. It's actually very relevant in many ways because we not only have shemoneh, esray, Mincha, but as we know, laining, read from the Torah. Why exactly do we do that? What's the story with that? Background information. So, just to give a brief introduction for the halachas of Mincha and Shabbos, to borrow from a well-known Torah in Hilchas Mincha itself, in Siman Reish Lamed Aleph area, Reish Lamed Beis, Reish Lamed Gimel, that's where Hilchas Mincha is discussed on the weekday, which many of the halachas are derived from over there. But there are definitely new halachas over here, which are very important. Mincha is very unique for the three daily tefillas that we say. Shachris is in the morning, and most people typically they aren't at work yet. They're able to daven Shachris before they go to work. Similarly, Mariv is after the day of the workday, and it's very easy to daven Mariv with the minyan. Mincha is a very tricky situation because for most people it's in the middle of their day, smack in the middle of the workday, and now they need to find the time to go and daven while also trying to work.
Especially during the winter.
Yeah, winter there's obviously very short uh, window of opportunity to daven mincha, only around 5 hours or so. Midach Gisa in the winter you can start early already 12:15, 12:20, 12:30, depending upon the day. So but it's difficult for a father of for personally myself, expecting our fifth kid soon, and it's hard with kids also to in the morning they're sleeping, right? In the winter it's not as easy because the earliest you could daven is not so early, but in the summer it's very easy to go. Similarly, Ma'ariv as well. Mincha, on the other hand, that's the challenge. That's the challenge. So what we see from this idea is that mincha, when a person davens at mincha, it's very special because it requires a lot of energy and planning, so to say, to get to the table, get to that minyan for mincha. It's a very special thing. We could obviously talk about for hours and hours all the chazals and the chashivas of davening mincha, and very briefly, mincha is was enacted by Yitzchak. We have the Gemara and berachos, Chavav, Shachris is Avram, Mincha is Yitzchak, Marav is Yaakov. A lot of explanations on that. Torah is on that. Mincha has to do with the Tamid Shal Bein Arbaim, the afternoon korban they would bring on a daily basis. And we have another Gemara that talks about that Eliyahu was answered Mincha. All in berachos, you have about this, right? Vav in other areas. So Mincha is a very special thing. So we're not learning the actual halachas of Mincha in terms of during the week. We're learning the halachas of Mincha on Shabbos. So particularly on Shabbos, just to give an introduction now within an introduction, here you had a very brief introduction to Mincha in general. Now just an introduction to Mincha on Shabbos. Most people have absolutely no clue what we do at Mincha and Shabbos. I would say maybe only 1 out of 1,000 Orthodox Jews actually understand Mincha and Shabbos properly. Yes, it's a brazen and bold statement, but I would argue that. You ask the following 10 questions or so to your average Orthodox Jew, they won't be able to answer the majority of them. Mincha is very interesting because we start off not only with Ashrei on Shabbos, but we say the Letzeon. The question is, why do we say Letzeon at Mincha? What is it doing there? Typically, during the week, Shachris, every single day, we say Letzeon at the end of Shachris. Okay? So now, on Shabbos, for some reason, we didn't say Letzeon at the end of Shachris. Rather, we say it in the beginning of Mincha. Many reasons for this. That's question one. We have to try to figure out. Question two. This, by the way, I haven't seen on anyone on the daf of our simon, and everyone should just be aware of the fact when I say I haven't seen anyone, I mean I looked around, I researched this. Okay, I haven't seen anyone discuss this shaila, but this shaila came up, and I'll just bring it up as an introduction and not the final psak, and of a conversation that someone, a point that someone made, and then ended up proving him wrong. But the point of the matter is, do you need a minion for Ashrei, for Mincha, for Letzeon? Should you wait for a minion if you know it's coming? What's the story over there? Nice but unnecessary. Is there a difference? Right? What's the story over there? So that's something to discuss as well. The third question, well-known halacha that a person for Mincha, at least during the week, should sit down when he says Ashrei before shemoneh esray. You don't want to just jump into shemoneh esray, so to say. So does this apply on Mincha, on Shabbos, right? This is also a question that isn't explicitly discussed in the simon itself, but it's a question nonetheless. Similarly, by Musaf, when we say Ashrei before Musaf on Shabbos Yantif, is there an idea of saying Ashrei while seated, or can you do it while standing? That's question 4. Question 5 is a very specific but yet technical and important question, which is actually a lot of real estate that's being used up. Depends where you look, but in certain svarim on this simon, which is why we're saying Vanis Filasi before Vahibin aron. We typically never say such a thing. So what are we doing? We usually do a kalar chapayim. Okay. Question 6 really could have been asked earlier, which is what's the story with wearing a talus? You see a lot of different things happening in a lot of different places. Should the chazan wear a talus? Should he not? What about the balkoire, the people getting aleyos, etc.? What's the story with the talus over there on Mincha? Okay.
Well, that's for Mincha. That's just all the
Mincha, you could say in general, but Shabbos is not a shaila. Shabbos, we know Shachris Musaf, you're wearing a talus. There's nothing to talk about, right? Everyone's wearing talus. Chazan's wearing talus also. The shaila is specifically Mincha, right? Question: if we're keeping track correctly, the right tally. So we need to count it. They go up to 7 or 6 or 7. So, what is the story with the laining on Shabbos? Mincha is a very unique situation because we lain, right? Here's a Gemara that talks about it, right? Where else do we lain in the afternoon? Middle afternoon. Usually we lain in the morning, right? Right? Yom Kippur, right? Fast maybe, right? So what are we doing over here, right? There's similarly within this question, there's a major discussion about Shnai Mikra. Okay, this could be question 7.5. Shnai and Mikra is a well-known halacha, which we're going to have to learn some in Reish Pei Hey in the near future. It's a Shem. So we're going to talk about when could you start Shnai Mikra v'chatarga, okay, for the next week. Could you start it by Mincha or no? So there are actually some interesting shittas about that, and it's not so simple that you could. And furthermore, even if you could start the Shnai Mikra v'chatarga by Mincha, does that mean that you have to daven Mincha, or if everyone daven Mincha already? Difference would be if you're going to go to a Mincha at 7:45 this time of year or 1:30. Tremendous difference, right? Okay, so we have to discuss about the laining. Okay. Question 8.5, that means of an introduction, is what is the story? And then again, this is just to whet everyone's appetite. This is straight up appetizer. Get your head thinking. Get it moving up there. Okay. What is the story with kadish after mincha? Okay. What is the story over there?
After mincha?
Typically, after laining. Excuse me. Typically, whenever we lain, we always say kadish.
There's no laining. There's no kadish, right? No.
I know there's no kadish. Why? Right? Number one. Number two, let's say someone did say kadish. And then someone said after, oh, wait, you're not supposed to say it. You didn't realize during kadish. And then question 8 3/4, I'd like to add, which is a question that actually you asked a month ago or so. Let's say you started saying kadish, right? Yiskadel, Yiskadel. Did you have to finish or stop? And when would you have to continue the Kaddish? At what point are you, there's no going back. You already said too much.
Point of no return.
Right, the point of no return. That is an important question, which is also relevant to the Shiloh of if a person started saying Kaddish after davening because no one else was saying, but two people were doing it, when could you stop? So, question number 9 and 3/4, we have to ask, let's say Yom Tov Shechaliyos b'Shabbos. When Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, what's the story with the laining over there? What do we lane and why? We had a very interesting collision.
Shabbos Mincha. Yes, right. Or just
Yeah, Shabbos Mincha and Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos.
The parsha.
Right. Okay. Yeah, very good. So the question becomes, we just had a few days ago, you do Mincha, regular Shabbos Mincha, all the laning and everything, and then you turn back to Yom Tov. Hallelujah. Oh, the door, so, like, it's an interesting situation with the mincha. Usually, you have a special mincha tune, right? We have to see, is that brought down anywhere with the tune? We could say that's a tenth of a question.
Right.
Where does that come from? Right?
Well, it seems like all it's something.
Right? So you have the special mincha tune. Right? Okay. Letzeon, there's the tune. Right? 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 So you have the okay, no, if you know right? So you have the special mincha tune. Only during mincha and Shabbos could you remember the tune perfectly.
Right.
It's a pretty easy tune to carry once you get going. So the question becomes, where are we at mincha? So that's basically where we have to discuss. And then of course you have at the tail end of mincha, Sidkos Chosedek. What is that? Why do we do it? When don't you do it? And then you have to discuss, obviously, if you have a chazan in the room, if and other times when you potentially wouldn't say it, you have to discuss that. So there's definitely what to chew on. Now, topics number, I would say 12 and 13 that we have to deal with are, what's the story with learning during Mincha? Meaning after Mincha. It's in between Shkia and Seitzol Chachavim. So, what's the story with learning? Publicly, privately, why yes, why not? And then what we also have to discuss by Mincha is there's a well-known custom, so to say, halacha, of you don't say good Shabbos to people. Right.
Does that have to do with mincha or does that have to do with shkia?
Shkia, but it comes up in Hilchos Mincha because this is where it is. So basically, based on the 15 to 20 different topics that we just discussed very briefly, there's definitely what to chew on. Now, it should be pointed out, if a person's going to be a good boy, and he's going to be kovei itim, and he's going to have a seder, he's going to learn a little Mishnah Berurah, he will notice that learning everything that we just discussed probably won't take him more than 7 minutes. And the reason is because the Mishnah Berurah is a small little page, right? So that's if you're learning it in a shallow way. But as we know, we don't do that over here, and we learn things properly. So we are going to be analyzing each of these topics over the upcoming days and trying to get to some definitive conclusions. I'd like to add one thing that just slipped my mind also. And this really reminds me of the when we had this chabura in Shayashiv, and a little more of an attendance, and when we were learning the halachas of Tashlumin and Siman Kufches. That's what this brings me back 11 years. This is when we learned it. If a person messed up, okay, and he davened the weekday shemoneh esray during Mincha Shabbos, what's the halacha? Are you yotzei or not?
Weekday,
right?
what's it?
Weekday shemoneh esray on Mincha and Shabbos.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. So
I don't think so.
I'd like to preface that by saying that if anyone tries to answer that, or if anyone did answer it, whatever you say is wrong. Because it's the shaila, you have to dissect the shaila more. When are we talking about over here? Are we talking about that you remembered still on Shabbos that you messed up, or that you remembered after Shabbos? It could be different. For example, let's say you remembered right after you daven mincha. I just said weekday shemoneh, right? So would you be good or not? Let's say that's the shiloh. Would you be good or not? David wants to say you're not good. The question, the question that could be asked on that is why not? What's the whole reason that they made a smaller shemoneh in Shabbos?
You're not mentioning Shabbos.
You're not mentioning Shabbos. What's the whole reason they made a smaller shemoneh in Shabbos?
Because that's what the berachos, right? And stuff.
You don't want to burden people and everything. But if you already did it, so let me ask another question though within this question. Yeah, topic number 23 over here. After Shabbos, right after Maariv, you're like, oh gosh,
It's only yours.
oh my gosh. Or like right before Maariv, after Shkia, you realize, Mincha, I messed up. I did a weekday Mincha. Hold on, so now you do Tashlumin? What's your Tashlumin going to look like? It's gonna look like a weekday shemoneh esray. It's gonna be Maariv.
That's the whole shiloh with
So
the Rosh Torah.
yeah, exactly. So this is a very nice shiloh in terms of what is going on with that mincha over there, right? So obviously, as we see, there's a lot to chew on. There's a lot to discuss. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is one of the longer hagnamas that we've done. You know, this is something that we do every single day. It's a special thing, okay? You know, should be pointed out. Person will think, okay, I learned Simon Reish Adi Beis. I learned Hilchos Mincha well. I know all the. It's not true. You could learn the Simon and study it very, very, very well. But still, at the end of the day, there are many, many, many halachas of Mincha that do not come up in the Simon, that are only on a regular day. Okay? So that has to be pointed out. You know, another interesting shaila, by the way, is you see the earliest time you could say mincha this time of year in New York over here is 1:29 right now. I think unless it changed to 1:30. Okay, 1:29. All right. Shaila is what can't you do before that time? Does that mean you can't do Ashrei before that time or shemoneh esray? Does that mean you could lane on Shabbos before that time? Okay. Furthermore, many have the custom before mincha, you say korbanos, pitum, ketayros, whatever you say, right? It's brought down. Hilchos mincha. It's a nice idea.
We're never talking about weekdays, right?
No, I'm talking about Shabbos. So do you have to wait until after, or even during the week, right? Do you have to wait until after that time of mincha, or you don't need to wait? Right. So it's definitely what to discuss over here. Let's jump right into the Torah. All right. Torah's going to open up the Siman. Siman Reish Sadi Beis. Reish Sadi Gimel is Hilchos Maariv. That's the next Siman that we're going to tackle this. I think that these Simanim complement one another. You learn Mincha, and then you learn Maariv right after. Okay? Then after, maybe we could go to Musaf. Okay? So we'll stick with the Seder Tefillah. You know, these halachas, they're important to know, and most people don't know them. They really don't. I just asked a lot of questions. I would say very few know the answer confidently, unless they're just going to guess an answer. All right? Torah says, Seder Tfilos HaMincha, Oimer Shliach Sibor Ashrei Yoshev Letzeon kadish. Okay, Torah teaches us what we do. At Mincha, the chazan says, Ashrei Yoshev Eisecha, etc. Letzeon, Letzeon Goyil. Right? Okay, that's the tune. Kadosh, 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 Kadesh, made it. Now I remember the tune. We're gonna see some. They try to specifically jump to be chazan for mincha. Helps you get to 100 berachos on Shabbos. Good chab, right? Everyone tries to run away. No. But Omer pasuk vanis filosi. You say then the vanis filosi pasuk. Okay. L'cha Hashem eis ratzon. Why? This was one of the 20 questions or so that we asked. Why do you say this? Up in Medrash, it says in the Medrash, "Asichu biyosh v'yishav v'negilu shavos v'sheichu v'ksi b'achim v'nit v'chulchu Hashem eis ratzon." Amar David lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. David HaMelech said in front of Hashem, "Rabbeinu Shalom Master of the world, Einu mazoi kishar umas oilam." The Yidden are unlike the other umos of the world. Umas oilam kisha shoisin umishtakrin hayuchin upaychsin v'anu loikein elo afal pi shashasinu v'anitz v'ilo silucha Hashem. The other umas oilam, what do they do on their holidays? They drink, they get drunk, and they do things that they shouldn't, unlike us.
Barbecues.
Nothing wrong with the barbecue. There's a problem with other things, domestic violence from person being intoxicated, lamashal. Shootings, right? And
Yeah.
the like. Ubesfard no hagin l'koifloi ve'ein no hagin kein ba'ashkenaz b'sarfa. In the Sephardic provinces, they would double up this pasuk. We don't do that in the Ashkenaz locations. Umotzion sefer Torah, we take out the sefer Torah. Kideisa b'Yushalmi, as Yushalmi says, Ezra tikelem liYisrael shu kardim b'Torah. Ezra enacted that the Jews should be reading from the Torah b'Shabbos b'Mincha, on Shabbos and Mincha, b'Sheni b'Chamishin, on Monday and Thursday. And the reason given for this is that you don't have 3 days without Torah. You could last if you don't drink anything for 3 days. More than 3 days, where you're already in the dehydration realm, then it could be fatal. Same thing, you need your Torah HaKadosh. Without it, it could become fatal spiritually. V'tnan, b'perek ha'koyde, es Megillah, it says in Megillah, b'Shabbos, es b'mincha, b'sheni b'chamishin, kodin, shleishim, pachlim, noitzim from aleyos, b'mavtim, b'navi. You have 3 aleyos on Shabbos, Monday, and Thursday, and you cannot add to those aliyahs, and you do not do haftora. B'karan asar pesukim and parsha haba, and you read minimally 10 pesukim from the upcoming parsha, which will be during the week. That's what you do. Good. Mispalin shalosh rishonos v'shalosh rachroinos v'kedushas hayoim v'emso batachad. So we're just skipping a little bit over here.
Yeah.
You say the regular 3 berachos that you say in shemoneh esray before, and you say the regular 3 after. The kadish hayoim b'emso, and you talk about the holiness of Shabbos in the middle. Right? Right? You do that. The Torah continues on the next page. Okay, then he's going to Sed Kaschal. The Beis Yosef quotes a Rokeach over here, who says if Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, you say in Mincha what you say on the upcoming Shabbos, not the Yom Tov, okay? Which is a very interesting concept, that we are laning the laining of Shabbos, but the shemoneh esray and the tune of the shemoneh esray is going to be Yom Tov. How could you reconcile that? So the answer is obvious. It's not a difficult question at all.
That was the enactment.
Right. The enactment was you're not supposed to lane on Yom Tov. Right? So you're only laning because of Shabbos.
Job.
So Shabbos seeks the status quo. The Ashrei knew Letzeon keep the status quo. And the shemoneh esray is the Yom Tov. The next Beis Yosef quotes the Sheboli Haleket, who says, after you lane from the Torah, you say kadish. Whereas during the week, Shabbos, Yom Tov, except for, says the Beis Yosef, and Shabbos during Mincha, and a fast where there's no haftora in Mincha, there wouldn't be kadish. Why? Here's the answer. Shabbos and Yom Tov, Shachris and Mincha, Yom Kippurim. If you're talking about on Shabbos and Yom Tov, Shachris, or Mincha and Yom Kippur, Tisha B'Av, you have an haftora over there. The haftora therefore constitutes as a hefsek. It's an interruption. An interruption. All right? Interruption between the kadish that's said after you lean from the actual Torah and the kadish before shemoneh esray. That's why you need to do a new kadish. Right? But Mincha and Shabbos, or anytime there's no haftora. There's nothing in between, in the way between the laining and the shemoneh. You just say one shemoneh after you put away the Sefer Torah, right? So that's the reason why there's no kadish.
So when
Easy to remember. If you remember and if you understand the reason, then you'll easily understand when you would ever say kadish after laining and when you wouldn't.
So when you,
Yeah.
so Monday and Thursday, there's no haftora.
But there's an interruption of the Ashrei, of the Letzeon, of everything that comes after. That's an interruption, and that requires more pesukim. Okay, so now this is when things get interesting, because we're talking Ashkenaz. Sephardim, first of all, the Lubavitchers do something very interesting. They say Kaddish while they put the Torah.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, that's actually quoted also.
It is quoted, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they use it. They quote
Yeah.
it.
Can you explain to me what they do?
They say Kaddish slowly while they put the Sefer Torah back.
You're not even
They say
saying
Kaddish. Well, so who's saying Kaddish? The
Chazan.
and then they have to have. It's funny. I daven somewhere where the person who does has pasicha.
Yeah.
He's the one he's the chazan.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means. I don't think you do that. But I'm saying.
Yeah, it's fine. Psicha, plenty of places you could do it. You're just taking out the Torah. Chazan
Yeah, especially if it's very close to the bima.
Yeah, no problem. It's interesting because you're not supposed to do different activities during Kaddish, even if it's small. So that whole thing is yeah, it's very interesting. Sfardim, Nusach Sfard, what do they do? Nusach Sfard.
they say Ashrei, and they put away the Torah, right?
Right, so they don't do a Kaddish after laining?
I think they do a kadish still.
They still do because the Ashrei and the Letzeon
Is the hefsek.
is the hefsek. It's the same
that
thing.
follows the rule. So
Right.
why do the Ashkenazim say kadish though?
Because you have the hefsek.
You don't have a hefsek if you're an Ashkenaz.
Why? When on Shabbos or during the week?
During the week.
During the week, of course you do.
What?
You have Ashrei and Letzeon.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
You're putting away the Torah right after you read from it.
When?
Oh,
There's no hefsek per se.
but how long are you
What's the
gonna?
hefsek?
How long are you gonna drag out the Kaddish? Now you have Ashrei in between and a Letzeon. When do you say Kaddish? Okay,
Right after you.
in general, you say after pesukim. That's where Kaddish belongs, right? So you have to say it after. It's an interruption. By the way, this Kaddish, some say shouldn't go to an avel. It belongs to the Baal Koreh.
Yeah, Rabbi Brown's very big on that.
Yeah,
With some other shuls, they give it to the.
a lot of them. That's what to discuss there. Also,
See, right after the Kriya.
yeah.
Acha shegamar Kriya, Omer Akarei. Oh, he says over here, oh, Yasam, interesting. Hasi Kaddish.
Okay, it's a discussion. Yeah,
And then you say that he writes. Then it's going to say that he writes on the hefsek.
correct. Well, why would the Ashrei not be?
Because you're putting away the Torah.
It's after the Torah.
What?
It's after the Torah, though.
What's
So,
after the Torah?
all this stuff is after that Kaddish, but before your next Kaddish, before aleyos.
Right.
So all that's an interruption. Take whichever one you want. You got 4 options here.
But that's the Kaddish Shalom, right? I thought we're saying,
Yeah.
why do you say Kaddish after Kriyas HaTorah?
Yeah, forget this Chatzi Kaddish. Just go to the chase. Do the shalom. Do the shalom. Why can't you just do the shalom?
Because I guess there's a hefsek over.
Exactly. That's why. But
And what's the point of the Kaddish after Kriyas HaTorah? Why do we do that?
you have to after pesukim. That's when you right. We just lay in Rus. We do Kaddish then.
You do a Kaddish. You do either a Kaddish Yasam. This is a Chatzi Kaddish.
Well, Chatzi Kaddish is basically a lot of times it's bridging different sections of davening together, right? The question is why we do a Yasam after Megillas Rus is what to look into there. That's definitely there's what to look into. Sure, it's Yasam?
We do the skabel? When do we say this? We already said the skabel, no? Because we already said
After Hallel, right?
after Hallel. I
Yeah.
think we do it.
Yeah.
Unless you don't do it, I forgot. I guess
I think you do it.
What's the question? Sorry.
I think you are supposed to do it to Skabel. What do you do after Hallel before Rus? What Kaddish?
Do you know? Either kadish after
Shalom.
halal before
The
us.
only time you do a chotzi over there is, as we
Oh.
learned, when you have Hanukkah. It's
Right,
not Rosh
Hanukkah
Chodesh.
because you don't davening musaf.
Right, correct. You need a closer for your Shachar shemoneh.
Right.
Right. Okay, now we're really talking deep ideas now about Kaddish.
No, halal. What the only time
good.
a halal is in shalim, right? Is it after Hanukkah or something after Hanukkah? So you don't say Musaf, right, or something? Oh no, when was that? No, what's
No,
that?
on Hanukkah, when you usually do on Hanukkah, what you do is you do a shalim.
You don't do a shalim because it's not. There's no Musaf, right?
Again. When there's musaf, right? So you do a shalim. Sorry, sorry. When there's musaf, you do a shalim. When there's musaf,
Yeah.
you do a shalim. When there's no musaf, then you do a chatzi because you're gonna. No.
Yeah.
No. When there's musaf, you do a chatzi
Yeah.
kadish before aleyos. So therefore, you do a full one after halal. That's when there's musaf, right? When there's no musaf, so then it's opposite. Then you do a chatzi kadish when there's no musaf. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
halal, but
fine.
you didn't say anything after Rus.
No, when you have rus, I think you do a shalim. You're closing your shemoneh esray.
You close the shalim.
You do a shalim.
And then
You always do a shalim except for on Hanukkah when
there's no muscle. When there's no muscle.
yeah. Wait, on Hanukkah when
There's no musaf.
again when there's musaf, so then you're gonna do
A shalim.
a shalim. Because right, a shalim. When there's no musaf, then you do a chatzi. That's the only time you do a chatzi when there's no musaf on Hanukkah. That's probably what it says in the Siddur. There's no musaf on Hanukkah. Okay, so going back to this, I don't know how we got to where we are. We would have to rewind 10 minutes.
Because we were trying to figure out why we talked about why is there a kadish, chatzi kadish after laining? There's no chatzi kadish after laining on Shabbos Mincha.
Okay,
That's how I think.
why not? So
Why
says the Beis Yosef, because there is no interruption. You're going to bank on the one before davening. Now, this obviously opens the question of, let's say someone did say Kaddish. Someone messed up. He said Kaddish after laining. So now the shaila is, you put away the Torah, and you say another Kaddish as usual, or you just put away the Torah and just start shemoneh. These are the questions that usually no one knows the answers to.
hardly ever happens, but
Look. This goes back to something that I've been saying in 20 years of learning halacha.
not lamaisa.
It ain't lamaisa till it's lamaisa. It's not lamaisa till it's lamaisa. That's my line. And how true is it? A lot of stuff happens, and you got to be on the fly. Most times, the things happen, people don't even realize it happens because you just space out during davening because there's a shot. But there are plenty of mess ups that happen often. And when a person learns about it, then he'll be more cognizant and realize that there's a mess up that's happening over here. So, anyways, this is the beginning of the tour of Hilchos Mincha, and in the upcoming days, we're gonna work our way through this session, through these halachas over here. Okay. Good. It's a good session.
Yeah,
There's what to think about. I wouldn't have had all these questions if I wouldn't have learned through it myself beforehand. So, yeah. Okay, everyone, have a wonderful day.
Go
Yeah.
okay.
Oh.